Intelligence. Energizing your email marketing with Kate Barrett.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Intelligence. For today's Intelligence Brand Spotlight, I am joined by Richard Fullerton from GiffGaff. We are absolutely delighted to have you, Richard. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, very welcome. Excited to chat to you.
Fantastic. So Richard has worked at GiffGaff for 3.5 years and is CRM lead. So let's jump in. Richard, do you want to do kind of a better introduction to yourself, and what does your role look like at GiffGaff?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kate. So I guess, I kind of look after all things sort of CRM, both from a kind of marketing point of view, and then we've obviously got a bit of a kind of operational responsibility as well. We've got a really good tech ops team that keep the lights on and keep everything functioning, but yeah, we've got that responsibility too. And I guess also kind of look after our member get member or referral sales channel kind of responsibility as well, or kind of myself and my team. And actually that's kind of how I joined GiffGaff. That was more the initial role, was to come in and help manage that channel, help grow that channel. And then just sort of a little bit by kind of natural expansion, it then became a lot of the other kind of sort of CRM activities. So, yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, that's always the way, isn't it? That you get started in a role and you end up taking on other elements. So other than email marketing, what other marketing channels come into CRM and into your remit?
Yeah, so I think for GiffGaff, it's predominantly email and SMS. At the moment, we're not doing anything really push notifications. We are working a lot and sort of leading a project at the moment to get a lot more synchronization between our email, SMS, and then also our on-site personalization, which is, it's a really interesting project, interesting challenge to bring lots of stuff together. But yeah, I think from our point of view, it's mainly email and SMS, and I think push notifications in the not too distant future, I think will soon be with us.
Fantastic. That all sounds brilliant. So let's kind of rewind it a little bit. So before you joined GiffGaff, I know you were at O2, so Telefonica UK. How did you fall into email? How did you get into this wonderful world that is CRM and email marketing?
Yeah, good question. I don't hugely know, to be honest. But I guess, I started in the B2B department at O2, looking at the public sector, actually, which probably was the first exposure to some email marketing, although maybe like one step removed. I had a responsibility to kind of craft a bit of a story and equip our field sales team appropriately. And a lot of that actually was about prospecting out to the leads and contacts that those guys had created, get them along to events, share our thought leadership. So that I think was the first exposure to it, and you get a sense of some of the power of that. But in a way, it's actually more down to the relationship a lot of the sales guys had with those contacts, rather than necessarily some of our colder prospecting. And then I guess I did some time in the consumer department of O2, which again we had propositions and promotions that we wanted to update our base to. That was actually a lot more through SMS, because I was looking at the pay-as-you-go base. And I think one thing I probably learned there was we often didn't have an email address for a lot of those people joining.
So I'm being joined by the cat.
And I think what that kind of demonstrates is actually it's very hard to build up much of a kind of rich conversation just through SMS alone. And that's when I subsequently came over to GiffGaff, which was initially to look at the referral sales channel. The fact that the nature of the business means that you have to create an online profile with us, or an online account, and submit an email address, that the opportunity for a kind of richer conversation than just 140 characters over an SMS was there, and one to be taken advantage of. As something that, I kind of then picked up the mantle with some kind of internal changes. It sort of opened up the opportunity to take on a greater responsibility. In part because I think prospecting to our base about getting their friends on board and being excited about GiffGaff was one of the main things we were doing for email, and therefore it kind of was a sort of natural conclusion that the responsibility for everything else kind of landed with me and the team.
So always the way, isn't it? That you end up falling into these different areas, but actually that can be really exciting because it gives you a challenge that you didn't even know you were stepping into, and it's nice to change up that day to day. So it sounds like you've got some fantastic things going on at GiffGaff. So for anyone who doesn't know, what do GiffGaff do? What do you provide? And how does email sit within the business? You know, how important is email to that business and allowing you to really serve your customers?
Yeah, so GiffGaff is what's called a mobile virtual network operator. So it's a mobile phone network essentially, but we don't own any of the masts or anything. We actually use those of O2, who are our parent company. But yeah, we're an online-only mobile network. We were the first to do that. We're actually turning 10 this year, which is remarkable.
Wow.
But yeah, I think our proposition is quite simple, really. There's no contracts, and people are kind of free to go and free to stay, kind of at their leisure, like that nobody's ever tied in at any point. So the importance for email is actually very, very high because one, being online only, no shops or anything like that, which is quite rare for a mobile network. When you look down the high street, you'll see lots of our competitors. That we quite often are the voice of GiffGaff, like the official voice of GiffGaff will be through the comms that you receive. Because similarly, if you go to our website, that's where all our kind of help is, and it's a peer-to-peer forum functionality, rather than, we don't have any contact centers either. You can't call up anybody for any help. So we have to take that responsibility, I guess, quite seriously as the email channel. That as I say, we will be one of the few places where it looks like GiffGaff is directly talking to you. And I think, yeah, just the natural consequence of not having lots of the other communication touch points, that we've got a job both operationally to keep you up to date with your account, which is a mobile account is obviously something that's kind of always on and very, very important for lots of people. As well as try and foster the relationship with you and make sure that you're able to see everything that is good about GiffGaff, that we are a bit different and we're proud that we're quite different, and try and get across that we actually do lots of other stuff beyond just provide mobile service, so that we can be run by you, which is obviously our kind of a strap line, and it has been for 10 years, and something that we sort of truly believe in. So yeah, very, very important for a number of reasons.
Fantastic. I think all of that sounds brilliant, and it really just solidifies how important email is for e-commerce businesses, you know, those that are mainly run online, to really understand who their customers are and what they need, and how that channel really needs to help push that information through to them. And you guys certainly have that absolutely spot on, and are doing some amazing things with email, I know. So in terms of your send strategy, how are you managing that? How are you managing to get that information out to people about their accounts, but also get that personality across that the brand has, because it's a really personality rich brand, but also to keep people engaged? You know, how are you managing that in your send strategy?
It's a good question. So I think more and more trying to get as much as possible trigger based or kind of propensity based, but yeah, inherently looking at the behaviors of our base, of our members, and how they interact with us. Be that from, we recognize that they're, you know, say they're buying the same goodie bag or kind of 30-day bundle every single month, but they don't have the feature enabled which allows you just to recur and let us buy that for you. And we recognize that actually there's some space for us to help you there, which is to suggest, do you know what, to save yourself the hassle of coming back every 30 days to buy this, you could turn this on. And I guess that is set up to run automatically, because it checks in on those data points that we've seen, and then we kind of trigger it out. That's just one small example, I guess, of lots of stuff that we're trying to do that is a lot more behavior based. And because there's so many behavioural touch points that, you know, we fortunately have access to, that, you know, our members are effectively using the product, you know, pretty much every second of the day, and telling us stuff. So I passionately believe it's our responsibility to take note of that and do something useful with it. And, you know, that can be from, you know what, actually, you could probably save money because you're not using, you know, the entirety of your goodie bag. You only use 4 gig out of the 8 gig that you have as an allowance to you. next month we suggest you maybe switch down, and you could save, you know, £5, something to that effect.
And that's something that you guys do that a lot of companies don't do. You'll actually call out to people if they should be downgrading rather than upgrading. You are so customer centric. It's unbelievable. And I know that you see fantastic results from that as well.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's the kind of thing that maybe like worries the finance department every now and then, but in actual fact, we believe in it. It proves out that by just informing people and showing that, you know, you want to do the right thing by them, that you've got their back, that actually people will value that and will stay with you longer. And it absolutely is beneficial to us all. It's beneficial to GiffGaff. It's beneficial to our members. We know those that see these recommendations, and it's a triggered email that goes every month. It's obviously highly personalised with the data about people's usage and what we recommend to them. The people that see it, you know, stay at a rate which is 6 percentage points higher than those that don't see it. And you know, it's available to anyone who's opted in, that they can see these recommendations, or they can go on the dashboard and see it sort of more manually. And so, yeah, it's extremely valuable to us, and we really see it as a kind of win-win for both our members and for us. So, yeah, it's something we've done kind of from the very start, and therefore it's something that we take great pride in doing.
Yeah, it's the whole ethos of the business, and you're really linking your email marketing strategy into that ethos, which is fantastic. And it all comes down to the data. You know, you've mentioned about how you're continuously learning about what people are doing, what they need. So you must have so much data available to use.
Yeah, there is a lot there. I think probably telco, more than any other industry, is probably being guilty of not putting to use what data we have available to us in a meaningful way. But I think, yeah, that's a big focus for us. We've got lots of different data from how people interact with us, say, on our community forum, for example. That in itself will trigger a lot of different notifications about, oh, you've just received, you know, a response to your query, or somebody has given you kudos to say, you know, well done, that was the best answer that could have been given to this sort of stuff, through to getting a sense that, oh, actually this person doesn't have the app, they don't have a card saved with us, they haven't really used that much data recently, and it all kind of points to, oh, I think you might need a bit of help because you're maybe struggling to get set up and make use of effectively the product that you're buying from us. So that really informs, for example, how we provide our onboarding comms to our members through our email marketing. And it's a very, 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 very big decision tree based on lots of different factors in those sort of first 30 days. And it's as I say, it's our responsibility to make use of what we're able to see and really try and help someone get the best value that they can out of GiffGaff.
Fantastic. So, I mean, you've mentioned the big decision tree there. So how do you manage that internally? How do you go about starting to plan new branches of that tree, saying, oh, we've got a new data point here that we want to add in, or we want to do some testing on that part of the tree? Or how do you manage that actual process internally? And what tips could you give our watchers and our listeners to doing that and creating such a complex link of campaigns?
Yeah, a very, very good question. I think I'm very fortunate here. We've got a brilliant business intelligence team and data science team. One thing I'd also say is it's not necessarily easy. There's no like one silver bullet to do it. We've also got great people in my team, and we had the luxury of being able to just sort of take some time and just put one person's head specifically on this project, which not everybody will have the luxury of doing necessarily, but I think we've certainly seen the benefit in doing so, and that we've invested the time in it and we've got the returns on it. So it's not a frivolous activity at all. I think in terms of testing and bringing in new data points, this is in large part why I've really tried to push towards us having much more automated campaigns and drawing in the data automatically, because we've now got a foundation that, you know, we can just take small branches off and make changes to, and know that the other 99% of the campaigns are just going to run without any need for us to touch it, that we're not triggering stuff off manually on a daily basis or anything to that effect. And therefore, we will probably just look for a new variable, create the same template, copy and paste, make some changes, run it, and we'll do this in tandem with our BI team so they know the delivery codes. And then in the first instance, we'd probably do that a little bit manually for the first month or so. And then if we kind of find a winner, we've got something to stick, and then build that back into the automated workflow. So that's another bit we don't necessarily have to worry about. We can go and test elsewhere. For the kind of ongoing monitoring, I guess, we use Tableau. The business is sort of well acquainted with Tableau, not just marketing, but in lots of different bits of the business, which is really good. Really works for us, and so we're able to denote, we're doing this test, and this is the specific objective that we're trying to look to, and we can see whether or not we're still on track to hit that, or if anything else has kind of maybe suffered, as a consequence. Fortunately not, touch wood.
Yeah.
You only change what you're trying to change and not something else. But.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So looking at when you've got a series of emails running, testing it against the control version, testing it to see how individual emails handle the change, but also how the series handles the change, and how your customers react to that in terms of their buying cycle as well, I would guess. Because it's not about just what happens in that moment, it's about what happens further down the journey with them. So if you were testing a series of emails and looking at, for example, people renewing and things like that, would you give that a month, 6 months, a year? Kind of what time frame do you look at those tests over? Because obviously yours is very different from an individual product purchase. It is that subscription.
I think that's a really important point, and point of distinction. So I guess a fairly industry-wide kind of metric certainly for kind of sort of pay-as-you-go telcos, looking at a kind of 3-month retention rate. That's certainly very important when people first on board, because it kind of gives a sense of, okay, everybody's kind of quite well set up now, and if you've managed to make sort of 3 consecutive purchases, then it kind of tends to suggest that, okay, I'm fully on board with what's going on, and I understand the proposition, and that's the point at which I'm going to make my decision, yes or no. It also kind of helps maybe eliminate any noise of people that tend to just be a bit more short term in terms of how they want to use the proposition, which is obviously absolutely fine. So for these kind of things, it will quite often be for us probably a 3-month retention rate, if we're looking at kind of more fundamental behavior change that we're trying to look to. So if we're trying to get somebody to change goodie bag because we think they can save money, and then obviously we wouldn't want them to do that and then hit their data allowance limits because they're now on a slightly smaller allowance, and therefore we would want to monitor that say 3 months from the point at which they're receiving this information. Are they still with us? Is it still functioning okay? But it's also kind of horses for courses, because something to the effect of our kind of upsells or cross sells quite often don't really mean parting with any money, but rather, why don't you check out this latest blog that we've got going, or why don't you download the app, or I don't know, come and have a look at another piece of content that we've got on one of our social channels. So that obviously has quite a more immediate time frame on whether or not those things have or haven't happened. And in actual fact, for GiffGaff, a lot of what we try and do is look at NPS. And so for things that maybe aren't necessarily objectively measurable in terms of revenue, or a distinct action has taken place, but it's something that we want to that we're doing because we want to kind of grow brand love or kind of happiness, then we're fortunate in that, like, we've got a big focus on NPS, and we've got that data fairly readily available to us. So we might look at that over kind of a month to 3 month period. Like, was it a sustained improvement in people's effectively opinion of us off the back of doing some of these more brand-led campaigns?
Fantastic. So for anyone who's not sure, NPS is Net Promoter Score. So it is about that opinion, that kind of softer data rather than the hard behavioral data.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that as a kind of small tip, I mean, you need to have it readily available, but it's certainly helped us almost kind of quantify some of the stuff that's slightly less tangible, and begins to allow you to, well, certainly me anyway, begins to prioritize between the projects that would nearly always win out, which is this can drive sales, or this can drive revenue, or this can drive X, Y, or Z, versus, well, we know that this is a nice thing to do, and it would be a really enjoyable and pleasurable, exciting thing for our base to receive, and it begins to put things on a slightly more even keel, and you're able to kind of compare between the two.
That is just such a good point. It's about having that qualitative and quantitative data. So you've got the numbers and you've got the softer side, and linking that in together. And I think what you've just said there is, it's such a fantastic point that we can all take out of it. It's not always about sell, sell, sell. It should be help, 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 sell, help, 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 sell. And that you've got that mixture of brand awareness, building relationships, building a long-term relationship, not just a short-term, get money off of them now and then, let them kind of churn out the other side. It really is about that long-term for you guys.
Yeah, 100%. I guess as an example, and at the start of this year, or the end of last year, we invested a lot of time as a team, and actually kind of across the business, in building effectively like a kind of yearly recap for each one of our members on the base. So we kind of went through a lot of the data that, as I've already mentioned, we kind of received based on people's data usage, whether or not they've called abroad, whether or not they were roaming, to put together what we felt and we've subsequently received in terms of the feedback, like a really nice and interesting display of people's individual data. Now, we didn't do that to try and sell anything. We didn't even have a call to action within the email. It was purely there as an engagement piece and something for people to recognize who we are as a brand. And I think if people are struggling to kind of think about what it looked like, it looks very like, and not to say that it was in any way sort of inspired by the kind of Spotify rundowns that you might see, but obviously with a uniquely GiffGaff taken on the kind of data that only we would have.
That all sounds fantastic. And yeah, we've seen this example. So Spotify, EasyJet, I think, did it in terms of reviewing the amount of flights you've taken with them. I think this is such a great way to, again, use the data, give that data back to people in an interesting way that helps them to understand what their usage has been with you. And it does also make them think about, what could they do more? It gives them that love, that brand affinity that they have been with you, and reminds them of all of that. So I think that all of these types of value add emails they're almost that softer sell. If our finance department was looking at it or what have you, it does help to build that relationship going forward, which will have an impact on your renewal rates and things like that. You may not, like you say, have a call to action there and then for someone to go and do something, but it does have a long-term impact. And I think so many brands can learn from what you're doing and start to add in those types of campaigns. They're just so important in my view. Yeah,
100% agree. And yeah, I think to touch back on the MPS that I was talking about before, that that is what we use as our marker of success there, and we've done a lot of analysis to know that an uptick in MPS correlates in renewal rates. It also correlates in more people going and advocating for you and bringing other people to the business, which is obviously quite important for me when I look for the kind of member get member side of things. And we saw a marked uptick in the people that were kind of receiving and engaging with this kind of yearly recap campaign versus those that didn't. And it helps add a kind of more kind of data-based robustness to, this is worth doing above and beyond it just feeling like the right thing to do. We then kind of get the data validation afterwards as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So kind of with all of that in mind, what's your highest performing campaign at the moment, do you think?
I think it probably is the usage statement that I mentioned previously, in so much as this is something that, whether you've been with us for 1 month or 330 months, you're going to get on a monthly basis, denoting this is, how you used your phone over the past 30 days. And then, a kind of relevant piece of advice, whether or not that is, hey, you're on the right plan, just stick with it. This is absolutely perfect for you. Or do you know what, actually, given how you've used your phone recently, there's better value in you actually maybe taking a bigger goodie bag and spending a little bit more, because you won't go out of bundle and spend on other stuff. Or, the really nice message that we often get to tell people is that you could save money if you move down. And it's not to say that we're going to do that for you, because we believe that you're kind of fully in control, and that could be slightly jarring if all of a sudden your allowance is halved and you didn't know why. But yeah, rather that it's advice there for people to do, and a one-click call to action for people to make that change if they want to. So
fantastic. Are there any kind of open and click rates that you can share with the watchers around any of those campaigns? What are your
I think our open rates are like over 40% for that. And as I say, this is going to people that have seen this maybe 200 times over, but still engaging with it at a really high degree. And interestingly, actually, since the advent of GDPR, we had to create a sort of service version of this as well, which unfortunately doesn't include the recommendations, be it up or down, because that was kind of termed the marketing side of it. But even those that are just kind of strictly informational and service based are receiving sort of similar levels of open rates to those from the people that are opted in, which is really encouraging from our point of view, because we think it's really important for people to know how they're using their phone, and ever so slightly frustrating in so much as we know that people appreciate the comms that we send, and I think probably our biggest challenge actually is with the kind of advent of GDPR, that this almost slightly sounds kind of grandiose, but now sometimes people kind of don't know what they're missing, in so much as having not chosen to opt in when they first join us. There's obviously certain things that we can still keep them informed about, but trying to regarner that opt-in and be able to show some of the stuff that we think is genuinely valuable. We've never felt that we've spammed anyone. And our stats before GDPR coming in sort of was testament to that. Like, people very, very, very rarely opted out, and therefore it now feels a little bit like, oh, actually, if you were opted in, I don't think you'd mind. I think you'd actually quite like it, and you get a lot of value from it. So that, I think, is quite a sort of telling indicator, and probably one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah, and I think, do you know what? In a way, it's almost a great challenge to have. That sounds really weird, so stick with me. But it makes us work harder as marketers to truly explain the value of our programs and make sure that our programs add value to the lives of the subscribers receiving it. So, it really is on that opt-in form, explaining that value they're going to get and delivering it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. And in actual fact, I guess one of the things where we're trying to tie up our on-site presence a bit better with our comms is, trying to find a few more places where we can have that conversation and explain that value. Because naturally, if you're just joining someone and you're kind of signing up, whilst we do our level best to make that experience quite seamless and easy for you, having a kind of in-depth conversation about why being opted in is really, really valuable to you is not necessarily that easy at that stage. And therefore trying to pick out other key moments where we could demonstrate that value to our members, and offer them the option to opt in again is definitely something that we're kind of looking into.
That's a really great point as well, that it's not just at that initial stage that you can ask somebody to opt in. There are other points in the relationship where you can reiterate that and try and encourage them. So I think that's a really great tip.
Yeah. Well, we just need to follow it.
We all do, right? So you mentioned about Tableau and using that for analysing your data and the statistics that you've got coming back from your campaigns. But what other tools are you using to manage all these fantastic messages that you're sending out to your audience?
So, I mean, our main ESP is Adobe Campaign, and it sort of has been for the entire time that I've been here. We've kind of gone through a couple of upgrades, but that's our main sort of main driver. And with that, we use Litmus as well to make sure that everything's looking good across lots of different providers. Outside of that, really, we're not using lots and lots of other tools, to be honest. We've got very good content and design teams that kind of put lots of stuff together. We've done some interesting development on the Adobe Campaign platform with our partner, I like to think, where to build in MGML, actually, so that we've got a kind of one master template and it's a lot more reactive to the different email providers. And it's a lot more kind of not drag and drop necessarily, but we've kind of chunked our master template up into lots of specific sections, so that it makes for it to be much easier and much quicker for us to create emails of varying levels of kind of complexity, I guess.
Fantastic. So like a modular template where you can pull in different design elements, different layouts, different sections that you might need for some
exactly
emails.
That, yeah. Modular was the word I was looking
template.
for. Yeah, absolutely. And alongside that, yeah, we've coded in some of the kind of JavaScript and queries that we'll often do for kind of standard personalization, so that it's quite easy for us to call on, obviously the standard stuff, your name and first name, but also the kind of stuff that we will use quite regularly. So maybe your current balance or the plan that you're on, or a few other bits and pieces. So that's really helped in terms of upping our throughput, I guess, in terms of new campaign creation.
Fantastic. So in terms of the trends that we're seeing in the industry, so whether that's AMP, whether that's more artificial intelligence coming in, I mean, you guys have, a lot of data and a lot of analysis there, and I'm sure you're using that to some extent already. It definitely sounds like in terms of your predictions. What are you looking forward to in terms of the next few years for email marketing and those upcoming trends?
I think actually it is more around the AI stuff and actually putting the data to a lot better use. So actually we kind of maybe combine what we were just talking about there with a modular setup. And I think, in my mind, I want to be in a position where each module is being dictated by a kind of propensity model, and it's learning, over each send that goes out, so that stuff is genuinely relevant from, from the header to the footer. Every single bit is been put there for a reason, and, we can scientifically prove it. But obviously we're going to need the aid of, artificial intelligence to be able to do that at scale. Maybe kind of doing away with the big decision trees that we map out on a big piece of A3 paper, and we've got a kind of, robust but easily usable and relevant automated and artificial intelligence to do that for us, I guess.
Yeah. I think there's always going to be, certainly for the next few years, that combination of the two, and having your decision trees and then using artificial intelligence to deliver the content within those. So I think we're certainly not out of a job. No. I think it would definitely add to what we're doing, and I'm really excited to see what we can do going forward. For those watching and listening, you're probably using artificial intelligence even to some extent now, doing product recommendations, what you might like to do next. I think even to some extent, you guys certainly are, in terms of offering people the upgrade or the downgrade. All of those kind of things are looking at the data and determining what is best for that person based on what they've done previously. So I think artificial intelligence can sound a bit scary sometimes, but we all need to start where we are and then work through it. And there are just going to be so many exciting adaptations of it that we can put into play. So yeah, I'm really excited about that one too.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what are, when you're looking at the market, when you're looking at different companies, who are you following, and whose email marketing programs do you love and why?
I think one that stands out for me, I really like ASOS. And the amount I spend with them probably is evidence to that. I think in large part because it is so personalized, but it's so stylish. Like, it's really visually appealing, I think. But within that, I know that there's about 3 or 4 sections that I'm just seeing. It looks like one consistent email, like it's been thought out. But I also know that that's been popularized, specifically for me. That it's nearly always black and white Adidas t-shirts for me, but I know that they're in there for a reason, and the amount that I click through, the amount, as I say, that I spend with it is testament to that. But I also think it's because it's part of like a really consistent, really well thought out and joined up experience. So the email is bringing to life something that they've just alerted me to via an app notification, and then if I log into the app or go on the website, I'm seeing the channel appropriate version of the experience that they want me to have. So I think they're really, really nailing it. And when you kind of break it down, like, their product is their ability to recommend to you, because it's quite often lots of other people's clothes that they're selling, and it's their ability to merchandise it. So I'm a big fan of ASOS.
Fantastic. So personalization, understanding your customers. You've talked a lot today about that customer journey, understanding where that person is in the journey and how you target them with the right kind of communication. So I think all of that is fantastic. So what would you leave people with in terms of your number one email marketing tip?
I think like super simple one, and it's almost like 101, but just have one call to action and like one specific objective of the email. I think everything we've just talked about personalizing and being able to bring it down to the one key action for that individual is, it takes work, but it's not out of the reach of anybody, I wouldn't suggest. And yeah, from our own experience, if you can make sure that you're just delivering one message to one person at the right time with one call to action, then it's going to be much better.
Amazing. That is a fantastic takeaway. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. I think you've given so much information, so much value to everyone watching and listening. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.